I knew something was off the moment I walked into the bridal suite. The air felt wrong, too still, like the pause before someone delivers bad news. Champagne bottles lined the vanity, but no one offered me a glass. 5 bridesmaids lounged in matching silk robes, their laughter cutting short when I entered. "Olive, you're finally here." Penny's voice carried that sugary tone she used when she was about to be cruel. I'd known her long enough to recognize it, 15 years of friendship teaching me all her tells. "Sorry I'm late. Traffic was insane." I set down my overnight bag, scanning the room for my bridesmaid robe. Everyone else was already halfway through hair and makeup. Penny glided toward me, impossibly elegant even in loungewear, her engagement ring catching the light with every gesture. "Don't worry about it. Actually, I need to talk to you about something." My stomach tightened. I'd spent the last 6 months helping her plan this wedding. Countless venue tours, cake tastings, and late-night text sessions about centerpieces. I'd even taken time off work to be here for her. "What's up?" I asked, trying to sound casual. She guided me to the corner of the suite, but not far enough that the others couldn't hear. "So, there's been a slight change with the bridesmaids' dresses." "Oh?" I'd already picked up my sage green gown weeks ago, had it altered to fit perfectly. "Everyone else is wearing sage, but I thought—" She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, a practiced gesture of false apology. "I thought maybe you could wear this instead." She pulled out a garment bag I hadn't noticed before, unzipping it to reveal a dress in a jarring mustard yellow. The style was completely different from what the others would be wearing. Unflattering ruffles across the bodice, a hemline that would hit at the worst possible spot on my calves. "I don't understand," I said, my voice smaller than I intended. Behind us, I heard a muffled snicker. "It's just that the photos will look more balanced this way," Penny explained, not quite meeting my eyes. "With your body type, the sage was a bit unforgiving, and Ramon's cousin is taking your place in the original lineup." The room went silent. I could feel every eye on me, waiting for my reaction. "My place in the lineup?" My mouth went dry. "What does that mean?" Penny sighed, dropping the act. "Look, you're still a bridesmaid, just not a main one anymore. You'll be at the end, next to the flower girl." The flower girl was 8. "When did you decide this?" I asked, heat rising to my face. "Does it matter? It's my wedding, Olive." There it was, the edge in her voice, the one that appeared whenever she was challenged. I need everything to be perfect. Perfect. The word she'd been throwing around for months. Perfect venue, perfect flowers, perfect photos. And apparently, I wasn't perfect enough to stand near her. "You could have told me before today," my voice cracked. "Before I took time off work, before I spent $300 altering a dress I apparently won't be wearing." Claire, another bridesmaid, looked down at her champagne glass, uncomfortable. The others watched with barely concealed fascination. "Don't make this a big deal," Penny said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "It's just a dress, just a different spot in the lineup." But it wasn't just a dress. It was 15 years of friendship. It was every time I'd stood in Penny's shadow, telling myself it was where I belonged. It was the realization that to her, I was an accessory to be rearranged when something better came along. "Who's taking my spot?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "Mia, Ramon's cousin." Penny gestured toward a woman I hadn't noticed before, lounging on the chaise in the corner. Tall, willowy, with the kind of effortless beauty that belonged in magazines. She wiggled her fingers at me in a half-hearted wave. "She's a model," Penny added unnecessarily. "The photos will be stunning." Something inside me cracked. Not just because of the dress or the lineup, but because in that moment, I saw our friendship clearly for the first time. I was disposable to her. Always had been. "I need some air," I managed to say, turning toward the door. "Olive, don't be dramatic. We need to start getting ready." Penny's voice hardened. "The photographer will be here in an hour." I paused at the door, looking back at the room of women who weren't really my friends, at the yellow dress laid out like an insult, at Penny's impatient expression. "You know what? I quit." The words left my mouth before I could think better of them. Penny's eyes widened. "You can't quit a wedding." "Watch me." I grabbed my bag and walked out, the door closing on a chorus of shocked whispers. In the hallway, my hands shook as I pressed the elevator button. 15 years of friendship, and this was how it ended, with a mustard yellow dress and the realization that I'd never really mattered. The elevator doors opened, and as I stepped inside, my phone buzzed with Penny's name on the screen. I declined the call. For the first time in our friendship, I wasn't going to come when Penny called, and it felt terrifying. And right, I sat in my car in the hotel parking lot, engine off, staring at my phone as it lit up again and again. 12 missed calls from Penny, 23 text messages, each one more desperate than the last. "Olive, you're being ridiculous." "The photographer is waiting. Everyone is asking where you are. This is my day. Stop making it about you. Please come back. I'm sorry about the dress. The last one almost got me." Almost. I'd spent so many years accepting Penny's half-hearted apologies, convincing myself they meant something. Not today. I tossed my phone onto the passenger seat and pressed my forehead against the steering wheel. The wedding was at 4 Amtsus. It was 1:37 now. Part of me, the part that had been Penny's faithful sidekick since middle school, wanted to go back, slip into that hideous yellow dress, and stand where I was told, but I couldn't. Not after seeing the look on her face when she'd revealed her plan. Not after realizing she'd orchestrated my humiliation in front of everyone. My phone buzzed again. Not Penny this time, but Levi. My closest friend outside of Penny's orbit. The only person who'd warned me, repeatedly, that Penny treated me like garbage. "You okay? Thought you'd be deep in wedding hell by now." I picked up the phone, my fingers hovering over the screen. What could I even say? That Penny had demoted me in her wedding party because I wasn't pretty enough for her photos. That I'd walked out 2 hours before the ceremony. "Wedding hell cancelled. I quit." His response was immediate. "Anne, what happened?" "Long story. Can I come over?" "Doors open. Bring alcohol." 30 minutes later, I was sitting on Levi's balcony, a glass of wine in my hand, spilling the whole ugly story. The yellow dress, the demotion, the model cousin who'd taken my place. "I should have seen it coming," I said, staring out at the city skyline. "She's always been like this. I just never wanted to admit it." Levi leaned back in his chair, his expression a mixture of sympathy and "I told you so." "Remember when she forgot to invite you to her birthday last year? Or when she borrowed your car for a weekend and returned it with an empty tank and a dent she never paid for?" I know. I took a long sip of wine. "I've been making excuses for her forever." "Because you're loyal. It's not a bad quality, Olive. You just gave it to someone who didn't deserve it." My phone, which I'd placed face down on the table, buzzed again. I ignored it. "Aren't you going to check that?" Levi asked. "It's just Penny. She's been texting non-stop. Maybe it's someone else from the wedding, Claire or someone." I hesitated, then flipped the phone over. It wasn't Penny, it was Claire. "You need to see this. Penny's losing it." Attached was a video. I pressed play, and Penny's face filled the screen, her makeup half done, eyes wild. "I can't believe she did this to me," she was saying to someone off camera. 15 years of friendship, and she walks out on my wedding day. After everything I've done for her. I snorted. Everything she's done for me. The video continued. Penny paced the bridal suite, gesturing dramatically. She's always been jealous. Always. Ever since Ramon and I got together. She can't stand that I'm happy. My stomach dropped. What is she talking about? I introduced them. "You know what?" Penny's voice turned cold in the video. "This is better. The photos will be perfect now. And honestly, I was only keeping her in the wedding because I felt sorry for her. She's been so pathetic since Gareth dumped her." The video ended. I stared at the blank screen, my cheeks burning with humiliation and rage. "Wow," Levi said quietly. Wow. She's lying. My voice shook. I wasn't jealous. I helped her pick out her engagement ring for God's sake. Another text from Claire came through. There's more. She told everyone you've been in love with Ramon for years. That's why she says you quit. The room seemed to tilt sideways. This wasn't just Penny being thoughtless or self-centered. This was deliberate character assassination. She's rewriting history, I whispered, making me the villain so she doesn't have to feel bad about what she did. Levy took my phone gently from my hand. Classic narcissist move. When they can't control you, they control how others see you. Something cold and hard settled in my chest. All those years of friendship, of putting Penny first, of shrinking myself to make her shine. And this was how she repaid me, by destroying my reputation the moment I stood up for myself. I need to respond, I said, reaching for my phone. I need to tell everyone what really happened. That's exactly what she wants, Levi warned. She wants you to look crazy and defensive. To prove her right. I paused, a new thought forming. What if I don't react at all? What if I do something she'd never expect? Like what? I took a deep breath, the beginnings of a plan taking shape. Like showing everyone exactly who Penny Kennedy really is. Levi's eyebrows shot up. What are you thinking? I'm thinking, I said slowly, that Penny's not the only one with access to embarrassing information. And I'm thinking her perfect wedding livestream might need some editorial adjustments. A slow smile spread across Levi's face. You know I work in IT, right? Specifically network security and digital systems. For the first time since walking out of that bridal suite, I felt something other than hurt, something that felt dangerously close to power. Tell me more, I said. So the live stream is being handled by Ramon's cousin's company, I explained, pacing Levi's living room. Penny wouldn't stop bragging about how they're using some fancy multi-camera setup so her family in Europe can watch. Levi nodded, fingers flying across his laptop keyboard. And you're sure it's going live on their wedding website? Positive. She sent everyone the link last week. I pulled up the email on my phone and showed him. The ceremony starts in an hour. Perfect. Levi's eyes never left his screen. Their security is decent, but not great. I can probably get us access to their video feed before it goes public. My stomach fluttered with a mixture of anxiety and exhilaration. Was I really doing this? Planning to sabotage Penny's wedding livestream? What exactly are we looking for? Levi asked. I sat down beside him, my resolve hardening as I remembered Claire's video. Penny smearing my name, twisting our friendship into something ugly. Penny keeps a private Instagram account, I said. Only her closest friends have access. She posts things there she'd never want public. Complaints about guests, unflattering drunk photos, screenshots of private conversations. Including stuff about Ramon. I nodded. She's not always kind about him, or his family, especially when she's been drinking. Levi whistled low. And you think we can splice that content into the live stream? If anyone can figure it out, it's you. I bumped his shoulder with mine. You're the tech genius. He gave me a half smile. Flattery will get you everywhere. But Olive, are you sure about this? Once it's done, there's no taking it back. The question hit me harder than I expected. Was I sure? This wasn't just standing up for myself. This was active revenge, something I'd never considered myself capable of before today. My voice caught. I don't know. But she's telling everyone I'm in love with her fiancé. She humiliated me in front of people I've known for years. And she's been doing this kind of thing our entire friendship. Levi set his laptop aside and turned to face me fully. You don't have to justify it to me. I'm on your side no matter what. I just want you to be sure you can live with whatever happens next. His concern made my eyes sting. When was the last time someone had prioritized my feelings this way? Let me think about it, I said finally. Can we at least get access to the feed? Then I'll decide. Fair enough. He returned to his laptop. This might take a while. Want to order food? 2 hours and 1 pizza later, Levi let out a triumphant, "Ha!" that made me jump. You did it? I asked, leaning over to see his screen. I'm in. And look, they're already streaming. The ceremony just ended. Sure enough, there was Penny in her designer gown, radiant as she and Ramon walked back down the aisle. Guests threw rose petals. Everyone smiled. It looked perfect, exactly as Penny had planned. My resolve wavered. Maybe this is a mistake. Maybe I should just let it go. Levi didn't respond immediately. Then, hold on, what's this? He clicked through some files on the production company's server. They've got pre-ceremony footage. Looks like they were filming in the bridal suite earlier. Can you play it? He nodded, clicking on a file. The video opened to show Penny in her robe, champagne in hand, surrounded by bridesmaids. My stomach clenched at the familiar scene. This was filmed right before I arrived. So Olive's coming, right? One of the bridesmaids asked. You said she was bringing the special champagne. Penny rolled her eyes. God, I hope she remembers. I told her like 5 times. But you know Olive, always a mess. Is she still wearing that green dress? Another voice asked. Mia, Ramon's model cousin. Penny laughed, the sound sharp and mean. No way. I had the yellow one made special. There's no way I'm letting her ruin my photos. Can you imagine? She'd look like a lumpy sofa next to you all. The bridesmaids tittered nervously. Penny, Claire's voice came from off-camera. That's really mean. Oh, please, Penny waved her hand dismissively. Olive knows her place. She always comes back, no matter how I treat her. It's actually kind of sad. The video continued, but I couldn't watch anymore. My hand shook as I stood up. Are you okay? Levi asked, pausing the footage. Play the rest, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I want to see it all. For the next 20 minutes, we watched as Penny mocked me, complained about Ramon's family, and made racist comments about the wedding coordinator. She bragged about how she'd manipulated Ramon into a more expensive venue and admitted she'd only invited his parents because they were paying for the honeymoon. By the end, my shock had hardened into something cold and certain. So, Levi said quietly, what do you want to do? I took a deep breath. I want to show everyone exactly who they're celebrating today. You're sure? I nodded, but not like we planned, not with her private Instagram. I pointed to the screen. With this, her own words, in her own voice, no editing, no manipulation, just the truth. Levi studied my face. That's actually more elegant and more devastating. Can you do it? Can you make this footage play during the reception live stream? He cracked his knuckles. Absolutely. The question is when. I thought about it, remembering the wedding schedule I'd helped create. The speeches. Right after Ramon's best man speaks, Penny's going to give a toast. That's when everyone will be watching. Perfect timing. Levi turned back to his laptop. I'll set it up, but Olive. Yeah? This changes things between you and Penny forever. You know that, right? I looked at the frozen image of Penny on the screen, her face twisted in mockery as she imitated me. 15 years of friendship, and this was who she really was. Who she'd always been. Good, I said. It's about time. We should go to the venue, I said, checking the time on my phone. The reception's starting soon. Levi looked up from his laptop. You want to be there in person? Are you sure that's a good idea? I need to see her face when it happens. The certainty in my voice surprised even me. Besides, we need to be close enough to make sure the stream works. Fair point. He closed his laptop and slipped it into his messenger bag. But how are we getting in? Won't they have your name crossed off the list by now? I smiled, pulling out my phone to show him the text from Claire. Everyone's asking where you are. Penny told the coordinator you're dealing with a personal emergency, but will be at the reception. She's worried you'll make a scene if she officially cuts you from the guest list. She's keeping up appearances, I explained. Classic Penny move. She'd rather pretend everything's fine than admit she lost control of someone. Levi grabbed his car keys. Then let's crash a wedding. 30 minutes later, we pulled into the parking lot of the Westbrook, an upscale hotel where Penny had booked the grand ballroom. Through the lobby windows, I could see guests in formal wear mingling, champagne glasses in hand. "Ready?" Levi asked, squeezing my hand. I nodded, though my heart hammered against my ribs. We walked through the lobby toward the ballroom entrance, where a bored-looking attendant checked names off a list. "Olive Grant," I said with more confidence than I felt. "And guest." The attendant scanned the list, then nodded. "Go right in. They're about to serve dinner." Inside, the ballroom was transformed exactly as Penny had planned. Soft lighting, lush floral arrangements, a string quartet playing in the corner. I spotted Penny and Ramon at the head table, her hand possessively on his arm as they greeted guests. "There's a service corridor behind that door," I whispered to Levi, pointing discreetly. "It leads to a small control room where the AV team is set up. That's where we need to be." "How do you know that?" "I helped plan this wedding, remember? I know every inch of this venue." We skirted the edge of the room, avoiding Penny's line of sight. Just as we reached the service door, someone called my name. "Olive, oh my God, you came!" I turned to see Claire hurrying toward us, her sage green bridesmaid dress swishing around her ankles. Her eyes were wide with surprise and something else. Relief? "Claire, hi." I tensed, unsure if she was friend or foe after everything that had happened. "This is Levi." "Nice to meet you." She barely glanced at him before turning back to me. "Olive, I'm so sorry about what happened. The way Penny treated you was awful. Her sincerity caught me off guard." Claire had always been firmly in Penny's orbit, never questioning, never challenging. "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked. She looked around nervously. "Because I'm tired of it too. The way she talks about people behind their backs, the constant manipulation. After you left, she spent an hour spreading lies about you." "I know. I saw the video you sent." Claire shook her head. "That was just the beginning. It got worse at the ceremony." She lowered her voice. "She told Ramon's parents you declined to be in the wedding because you're in love with him." My stomach dropped. "She what?" "His mother kept giving me these pitying looks, asking if you were getting the help you need." Claire's expression hardened. "It's disgusting. And it's not the first time she's done something like this." I exchanged glances with Levi. "What do you mean? Remember Jasmine? Penny's roommate from college?" Claire asked. "Of course. Jasmine had been part of our friend group until she and Penny had a falling out 3 years ago. Penny said she stole money from her." Claire laughed bitterly. "That's what she told everyone. The truth is, Jasmine caught Penny cheating on Ramon with her ex. Penny destroyed her reputation before she could tell anyone. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. Not just because it meant Penny had cheated on Ramon, but because I'd believed her lies about Jasmine. I'd cut Jasmine out of my life without question, just like Penny wanted." "How do you know this?" I asked. "Jasmine reached out to me last year, showed me texts, photos, everything." Claire glanced toward the head table. "I confronted Penny. She swore it was a one-time mistake, that she truly loves Ramon. Made me promise not to tell anyone. I felt sick. How many other people had Penny hurt? How many relationships had she poisoned?" "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked again. "Because I saw your face when you walked out of that bridal suite." Claire's eyes filled with tears. And I recognized it. It's the same face I see in the mirror every time I let Penny manipulate me into hurting someone else. Her words hung between us, raw and honest. In that moment, I saw Claire not as Penny's accomplice, but as another victim of her manipulation. "Claire," I said carefully, "what would you say if I told you Penny's about to get exactly what she deserves?" She studied my face. "I'd say it's about damn time." I glanced at Levi, who gave me a subtle nod. "Do you know when the speeches are scheduled?" I asked. "After the main course. About 20 minutes from now." Claire's eyes narrowed. "Why? What are you planning?" I took a deep breath. "Something that can't be undone. Something that might hurt Ramon too." "Ramon deserves to know who he married," Claire said firmly, "and I want to help." Her offer surprised me. "You'd risk your friendship with Penny?" "What friendship?" Claire's laugh was hollow. "I'm just another prop to her, like you were, like we all are. In that moment, my plan shifted. It wasn't just about my revenge anymore. It was about breaking Penny's power over all of us. "Okay," I said, making a decision. "Here's what we need to do." The service corridor was narrow and dimly lit, smelling of cleaning products and kitchen steam. Claire led the way, her bridesmaid dress brushing against the walls as we hurried toward the AV control room. "It's just ahead," she whispered. "There's usually only one tech person monitoring everything." Levi adjusted his messenger bag. "Perfect. I can handle that." We reached a door marked "Staff Only," and Claire knocked softly. A young man with headphones opened it, his eyes widening at the sight of Claire in her bridesmaid dress. "Hi, Josh," she said, flashing a smile I'd never seen her use before. "These are the additional techs I mentioned. For the special video surprise?" Josh frowned. "No one told me about any special video." "It's a last-minute addition from the bride," I interjected, stepping forward. "Penny wants it played right after the best man's speech. She's very particular about the timing." "I don't know." Josh hesitated. "I'm supposed to follow the rundown sheet." Claire touched his arm. "It's Penny's wedding gift to Ramon. She'll be devastated if it doesn't happen exactly as she planned." I watched with grudging admiration as Claire manipulated him. She'd clearly learned from the master. "Fine," Josh sighed. "But if anything goes wrong, I'm telling them it was your idea." "Of course," Claire agreed sweetly. Josh let us into the small room, which was crowded with monitors showing different angles of the reception. One screen displayed the live stream that was currently broadcasting to absent guests and Penny's social media followers. "I need to check on the wedding party," Claire said. "They'll wonder where I am." "Josh, could you show me which entrance gets me back to the head table quickest?" As Claire led Josh out of the room, Levi immediately sat down at the control panel and connected his laptop. "We have maybe 10 minutes before he comes back," I said, watching the door. "That's all I need." Levy's fingers flew across the keyboard. "I'm setting up the pre-ceremony footage to automatically insert into the live stream during the speeches." I looked at the monitors, watching guests laugh and eat. On the center screen, Penny glowed with bridal perfection, accepting compliments and posing for photos. Ramon sat beside her, looking handsome but slightly uncomfortable in his tuxedo. "What if this is wrong?" I said suddenly. "Ramon didn't do anything to deserve this." Levi paused his typing. "You're having second thoughts?" "Not about Penny, but Ramon. Finding out his wife cheated on him, in front of everyone, on his wedding day. From what Claire said, it sounds like he deserves to know the truth. But like this," I gestured at the screens, "in front of his family, his friends, while the whole thing streams online." Levi turned to face me fully. "Olive, what's really going on? This was your idea." I sank into the chair beside him, the weight of what we were about to do suddenly heavy on my shoulders. "I want Penny to face consequences. I want everyone to see who she really is. But I'm becoming just like her, aren't I?" The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. Manipulating people, orchestrating public humiliation, using other people's pain for my own purposes. Levy was quiet for a moment. "There's a difference," he finally said. "Penny hurts people to elevate herself. You're exposing the truth to stop her from hurting more people. The result is the same, though. Pain, humiliation." I looked at the monitor where Ramon was now laughing at something his best man said. "He doesn't deserve this." Before Levi could respond, the door opened and Claire slipped back in. "Josh is getting the microphones ready for the speeches," she said breathlessly. "We don't have much time." She noticed our serious expressions. "What's wrong?" "I'm not sure we should do this," I admitted. "Not to Ramon, at least." Claire's expression softened. "I understand. But Olive, there's something you should know." She pulled out her phone and opened her text messages. "This is from Jasmine. I texted her after our conversation earlier." She handed me the phone. The message read, "It wasn't just once with the ex. She's been seeing Gareth again for months. Ramon has no idea." My blood ran cold. Gareth? My Gareth? Claire nodded grimly. Your ex. Penny's been sleeping with him since before you two broke up. The room seemed to tilt sideways. Gareth had ended our relationship 6 months ago, claiming he needed space and wasn't ready for commitment. 2 weeks later, Penny had asked me to be her bridesmaid, consoling me over wine about how men were trash and I deserved better, all while she was sleeping with him. How do you know this is true? I asked, my voice barely audible. Jasmine has proof. Screenshots of their conversations, photos of them together. Claire took her phone back. I'm sorry, Olive. I thought you knew. The final piece clicked into place. Why Penny had been so eager to keep me close, to make me her bridesmaid, despite clearly not wanting me in her photos. It wasn't friendship. It was guilt. Or worse, a sick enjoyment of having power over me. Do it, I said to Levi, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. Play everything, all of it. Levi studied my face. You're sure? Ramon deserves to know who he married, and I deserve to stop protecting someone who never protected me. He nodded and turned back to his laptop. It's set. When the best man finishes his speech, the pre-ceremony footage will automatically cut into the live stream. What about the ballroom screens? Claire asked. Everyone here needs to see it too. Already done, Levi confirmed. The same feed goes to the projectors in the room. A commotion from the monitors drew our attention. The best man was standing, tapping his champagne glass with a spoon. Guests were taking their seats. It's starting, Claire whispered. I watched as the best man began his speech, telling stories about Ramon's college days, their friendship, how he'd never seen Ramon as happy as he was with Penny. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my throat. In just minutes, everything would change. Relationships would shatter, reputations would crumble, and I would be responsible. Olive, Levi said quietly, his hand finding mine. Last chance to stop this. I looked at the monitor where Penny sat, radiant in her white gown, a picture of innocent joy as she gazed adoringly at Ramon. No, I said, squeezing Levi's hand. Some truths need to be told. The best man's speech dragged on, each joke and sentimental story stretching my nerves tighter. On the monitor, I watched Penny laugh at all the right moments, her hand resting possessively on Ramon's arm. The perfect bride, the perfect lie. And so, the best man concluded, raising his glass, to Ramon and Penny, may your marriage be as beautiful as today has been. Guests applauded. Penny stood to take the microphone, smoothing her gown with practiced grace. It's happening, Claire whispered. Levi's program was set to trigger the moment Penny began speaking. I held my breath, watching her lips form the words, "Thank you all for coming," when suddenly the control room door burst open. Josh rushed in, followed by a tall man in a tuxedo I recognized immediately. Gareth, my ex-boyfriend, Penny's lover. What the hell is going on in here? Gareth demanded, his eyes landing on me with a flash of recognition. Olive, how did you... I began, but Josh cut me off. I checked with the wedding planner. There's no special video surprise. He pointed accusingly at Claire. You lied to me. Claire stepped forward. Josh, please, you don't understand. I understand perfectly, Gareth interrupted, his gaze moving from me to Levi's laptop, which was connected to the control panel. You're trying to sabotage Penny's wedding. The irony of his concern for Penny's wedding nearly made me laugh. That's rich coming from you, Gareth. How long have you been sleeping with the bride? His face paled. What are you talking about? Don't bother denying it. We know everything. I gestured to Claire. We have proof. Josh looked between us, confusion written across his face. What's happening? Nothing, Gareth said firmly. These two aren't authorized to be here, and whatever they've set up needs to be disconnected immediately. He moved toward Levi's laptop, but I stepped between them. Don't touch it, I warned. Olive, be reasonable, Gareth said, his voice dropping to that soothing tone he'd always used when he wanted to manage me. Whatever you think you know, This isn't the way to handle it. Reasonable. I felt something snap inside me. Was it reasonable when you dumped me because you weren't ready for commitment while you were screwing my best friend behind my back? Was it reasonable when Penny asked me to be her bridesmaid, knowing what she'd done? Gareth's expression confirmed everything before he could deny it. Josh's eyes widened as he finally understood the drama unfolding in his control room. "Holy shit," Josh muttered. On the monitor, Penny was midway through her speech, thanking her parents for their support. The countdown on Levi's laptop showed 30 seconds until the video would interrupt the live stream. "You need to stop this," Gareth said, an edge of panic in his voice. "You have no idea what you're about to do." "I know exactly what I'm doing," I replied. "I'm showing everyone who Penny really is." "And destroying Ramon in the process," Gareth countered. "Is that what you want? To hurt an innocent person?" His words hit their mark. Ramon was innocent, but then again, so was I when Penny decided to sleep with my boyfriend. 20 seconds, Levi murmured. Gareth turned to him. "Look, man, I get that you're helping your friend, but this is going too far. There are better ways to handle this." "Like how?" Claire demanded. "Penny has manipulated and hurt people for years. She's never faced a single consequence." "So talk to her," Gareth exclaimed. "Confront her privately. Hell, tell Ramon privately if you must, but not like this. Not in front of everyone he loves." 10 seconds, Levi said. I looked at the monitor where Ramon sat, smiling up at his new wife with genuine adoration. In that moment, I saw myself 6 months ago, looking at Gareth the same way, completely unaware of the betrayal happening behind my back. "Stop it," I said suddenly to Levi. "Turn it off." Levi looked up, surprised. "Are you sure?" "Yes." The certainty in my voice surprised even me. Gareth is right about one thing. Ramon doesn't deserve this. Levi quickly typed a command, cancelling the program with 2 seconds to spare. I exhaled, not realizing I'd been holding my breath. "Thank you," Gareth said, relief evident in his voice. I turned to him, my momentary compassion for Ramon hardening into renewed anger. "Don't thank me, this isn't over." "Olive." "No," I cut him off. "You don't get to speak to me. Not after what you did." On the monitor, Penny was concluding her speech, raising her glass in a toast, the perfect image of the blushing bride, untouched by the chaos unfolding behind the scenes. "So what now?" Claire asked quietly. Before I could answer, the control room door opened again. This time, it was Nadine, the wedding coordinator I'd worked with for months planning Penny's perfect day. "There you are, Olive," she said, her professional smile firmly in place despite the tension radiating through the room. "Penny's asking for you." "Me?" I couldn't hide my surprise. "Why?" "She wants all the bridesmaids for photos before the cake cutting." Nadine's eyes took in the strange gathering in the control room, but remained professionally neutral. "She specifically mentioned you should be included." Claire and I exchanged glances. This made no sense. Penny had humiliated me, demoted me, and spread lies about me. Now she wanted me in her photos. "Tell her I declined," I said. Nadine's smile tightened. She was quite insistent. "Said to tell you it's important." A cold realization washed over me. This wasn't about photos. Penny must have noticed my absence, perhaps even spotted me entering the service corridor. She was trying to flush me out, to control the situation as she always did. "Actually," I said slowly, a new plan forming, "tell her I'll be right there." After Nadine left, Gareth grabbed my arm. "Olive, whatever you're thinking," I jerked away from his touch. "You lost the right to tell me what to do when you started sleeping with my best friend." "It wasn't like that," he insisted. "It's complicated." "It's actually very simple," I replied, my voice steady. "You're both liars. And now, instead of exposing Penny to everyone, I'm going to confront her directly, just like you suggested." I turned to Claire. "Are you with me?" She nodded without hesitation. "Absolutely." As we headed for the door, Levi called after me. "What should I do with the footage?" I paused, looking back at him. then at Gareth, whose face had gone pale again. "Keep it ready," I said. "This isn't over until Penny faces what she's done." The ballroom was a blur of elegant decorations and clinking glasses as Claire and I made our way through the crowd. My heart hammered against my ribs, each beat a reminder of what I was about to do. Confront Penny, in person, at her wedding. "Are you okay?" Claire asked, her voice barely audible above the string quartet. "No," I admitted, "but I'm done letting her think she can control me." We approached the head table where Penny sat, laughing with Ramon and his parents. When she spotted us, her smile faltered for just a fraction of a second before returning, brighter and more artificial than before. "Olive!" she exclaimed, rising from her seat. "You made it. I was so worried about you." The performance was flawless, concern in her eyes, warmth in her voice. If I hadn't known better, I might have believed she actually cared. "Nadine said you wanted photos," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. "Yes, of course." She gestured to a photographer hovering nearby. "We're doing the bridesmaid pictures before cake cutting. I saved you a spot." Ramon stood, offering me a genuine smile. "Olive, glad you could make it after all. Penny was really upset when you had your emergency." The kindness in his eyes made my stomach twist. He had no idea what was coming. "Actually," I said, "I need to speak with Penny privately first. Bridesmaid stuff." Penny's smile tightened. "Can't it wait? The photographer's on a schedule." "It'll just take a minute," Claire interjected, linking her arm through Penny's. "Wedding day jitters, right?" Before Penny could protest further, we guided her away from the table, through a set of French doors that led to a small terrace overlooking the hotel gardens. The night air was cool against my flushed skin, the distant sound of traffic a reminder of the world beyond this moment. As soon as the doors closed behind us, Penny yanked her arm free from Claire's grasp. "What the hell is going on?" she demanded, her bride persona vanishing instantly. "First you abandoned me this morning, then you sneak around my reception with Claire. Are you trying to ruin my wedding?" "That was the plan," I said calmly. Her eyes widened. "What?" "We were going to expose you, Penny. Show everyone who you really are." "What are you talking about?" She laughed, but it sounded hollow. "Expose what?" "The things you said about me this morning. The lies you've been spreading about me being in love with Ramon. Your affair with Gareth." The colour drained from her face. "You're insane." "We have proof," Claire said. "Videos, texts, everything." Penny's gaze darted between us, calculating. I could almost see her mind racing, looking for an escape route, a way to twist this to her advantage. "So what now?" she finally asked. "You're going to humiliate me at my own wedding? Destroy my marriage before it even begins? That's pretty vindictive, Olive. I didn't think you had it in you." "That's the difference between us," I replied. "I don't want to be like you. I don't want to hurt people just because I can." "Then why are you here?" Her voice took on a desperate edge. "What do you want?" The question hung in the air between us. What did I want? Revenge? Justice? An apology? None of it seemed enough to heal the wound of her betrayal. "I want you to admit what you did," I said finally. To my face. "No more lies, no more manipulation." Penny's expression hardened. "Fine. You want the truth?" "Yes, Gareth and I have been seeing each other. It started before you broke up. And yes, I said those things about you this morning. You want to know why?" "Enlighten me," I said, my voice cold, "because you've always been so pathetically eager to please, so desperate for my approval. It was exhausting, Olive, always having you there, looking up to me, needing me." Her words came faster now, venom in every syllable. "And then Ramon proposed, and suddenly everyone was focused on me, my perfect day, my perfect life. I couldn't have you there in your perfect little bridesmaid dress, with your perfect little speech about our friendship. It would have been too fake." Each word was a slap, but I stood my ground. "So you decided to humiliate me instead, to spread lies about me. I needed you out of the picture, but I knew you'd never walk away on your own. You're too loyal." She spat the last word like an insult. So, yes, I pushed until you broke, and it worked. Claire stepped forward. You're unbelievable. Do you even hear yourself? Penny turned to her. Oh, please. Don't act so shocked. You've been right there with me for years, Claire. Laughing at the same jokes, excluding the same people. You're no better than I am. You're right, Claire admitted. I'm not proud of who I've been, but at least I'm trying to change. The terrace door opened, and Ramon stepped out. Everything okay out here? They're waiting for us to cut the cake. The three of us froze. How much had he heard? Everything's fine, honey, Penny said, her voice instantly transforming back into the loving bride. Just some last-minute bridesmaid drama. Ramon looked between us, his brow furrowed. It doesn't look fine. Something in his expression told me he'd heard more than Penny realized. A decision crystallized in my mind. Ramon, I said quietly, there's something you should know. Olive, don't, Penny warned, panic flashing in her eyes. I looked at her. Really looked at her. The woman I'd called my best friend for 15 years. The woman who'd betrayed me without a second thought. In that moment, I saw her clearly for the first time. Not as the confident, perfect Penny I'd always envied, but as someone so deeply insecure that she had to destroy others to feel powerful. Penny has been having an affair, I said, my eyes never leaving hers. With my ex-boyfriend, Gareth. It started before he and I broke up. Ramon's sharp intake of breath was the only sound on the terrace. Penny's face contorted with rage. You bitch, she hissed. After everything I've done for you. Is it true? Ramon cut her off, his voice dangerously quiet. The silence stretched between them, thick with 15 years of my misplaced loyalty and 6 months of Penny's lies. Ramon, baby, she's just jealous, Penny tried, reaching for his hand. She's always wanted what we have. He stepped back from her touch. Answer the question, Penny. Is it true? In that moment, something broke in Penny's perfect facade. Her shoulders slumped, the fight draining out of her. It wasn't serious, she whispered. It didn't mean anything. The words hung in the air, a confession that couldn't be taken back. Ramon's face hardened as he looked at his bride of less than 6 hours. Where is he? He asked. Is he here? As if on cue, the terrace door opened again, and Gareth stepped out, followed by Levi. Their eyes widened as they took in the tableau before them. Perfect timing, I said quietly, as the final act of Penny's perfect day began to unravel. The terrace fell silent as Ramon looked between Penny and Gareth, his jaw clenched so tight I could see a muscle twitching in his cheek. You, he said to Gareth, his voice dangerously quiet. You're the guy. Gareth shifted uncomfortably. Look, man. Don't look, man, me, Ramon cut him off. You slept with my wife? At our engagement party? In my apartment? My head snapped toward Penny. Your engagement party. The one I helped plan. Penny wouldn't meet my eyes. Confirmation enough. I remembered that night clearly. Staying until 2 a.m., helping clean up while Penny claimed a migraine and disappeared to lie down in Ramon's bedroom. Meanwhile, Gareth had mysteriously needed to leave early for a work emergency. I'd been so blind. Ramon, please, Penny reached for him, desperation cracking her perfect facade. It was a mistake. It didn't mean anything. Twice in 2 minutes you've said it didn't mean anything, Ramon replied, stepping away from her touch. Is that supposed to make me feel better? The terrace door opened again, and Nadine poked her head out. Everyone's waiting for the cake cutting, she announced, then paused, reading the tension. Is everything all right? No, Ramon said flatly. Everything is not all right. He turned to Penny, something final in his expression. I can't do this. Ramon, wait. Penny grabbed his arm as he moved toward the door. Don't. He shook her off. I need to think. As Ramon pushed past Nadine into the ballroom, Penny rounded on me, her face contorted with rage. Are you happy now? She hissed. You've ruined everything. You ruined it yourself, I replied, surprised by the calmness in my voice. I just stopped pretending I didn't see it. I should have known you'd turn on me eventually, she spat. You've always been jealous of me, always wanting what I have. I almost laughed. That's what you think this is about? Jealousy? What else? You couldn't stand that I got the perfect guy, the perfect wedding. Perfect? I interrupted. Penny, look around you. Your husband just walked out. Your lover is standing right here. Your perfect wedding is falling apart because you couldn't stop lying for one day. She flinched as though I'd slapped her. The sad thing is, I continued, I never wanted what you had. I wanted your friendship, your loyalty. I thought I had it until I realized you don't know what those words mean. Gareth stepped forward. Penny, we should go inside. Damage control. She nodded, composing herself with visible effort. Before they reached the door, I called after them. Penny. She turned, her expression guarded. I'm not going to show the videos, I said. Not to the guests, not online. Not because you deserve my protection, but because I don't need revenge anymore. I just needed the truth. Something flickered across her face. Relief? Regret? I couldn't tell. Without another word, she and Gareth disappeared into the ballroom. Claire squeezed my arm. Are you okay? Surprisingly, yes. And I meant it. The weight I'd been carrying, the hurt, the anger, the need for vindication, had lifted, leaving something lighter in its place. Levi joined us at the railing, looking out over the darkened gardens. So that's it. After everything she did, she just walks away. She's not walking away, I said. She's going back to face 300 guests and a husband who just found out she cheated on him. That's its own kind of reckoning. Still feels like she's getting off easy, Claire muttered. Maybe, I conceded, but I'm not responsible for making Penny face consequences. I'm only responsible for how I respond to what she did. Levi studied my face. When did you get so wise? About 20 minutes ago, I laughed, and it felt good, real and unexpected. The terrace door opened again. This time it was Ramon. His tie loosened, his expression somber. Can I talk to you? He asked me. Claire and Levi exchanged glances. We'll be inside, Levi said, giving my shoulder a supportive squeeze before they left us alone. Ramon leaned against the railing beside me, looking out at the night sky. I just told everyone the reception is over. I'm sorry, I said, and meant it. Don't be. Better to end it now than live a lie. He turned to face me. Why didn't you tell me sooner? About Penny and Gareth? I only found out today, I admitted. When I discovered she'd been lying about me, too. He nodded slowly. The bridesmaid dress, the lineup change. You knew about that. I overheard her talking to Mia this morning. His mouth twisted. I thought it was just wedding stress making her act cruel. I should have seen the pattern. We stood in silence for a moment, the distant sound of confused guests leaving the ballroom drifting through the closed doors. What will you do now? I asked. Annulment, he said simply, then probably get very drunk and sleep for a week. Despite everything, I smiled. Sounds like a solid plan. What about you? He asked. What happens after you burn the bridge with your oldest friend? The question caught me off guard. What did come next? For so long, my life had orbited around Penny's. Her needs, her plans, her approval. Without that, who was I? I don't know, I said honestly, but for the first time in years, that feels exciting rather than terrifying. Ramon nodded, understanding in his eyes. Freedom often does. Inside, I could hear Penny's voice rising above the murmurs, demanding something from the staff. Some habits die hard. I should go deal with all of that, Ramon sighed. Want backup? I offered. He considered it, then shook his head. I think we've both spent enough time cleaning up Penny's messes. As he turned to leave, I felt a sudden urge to say something more, something to mark this strange, unexpected moment of clarity between us. Ramon, he paused at the door. For what it's worth, I think we both deserved better friends than we chose. He smiled, sad but genuine. Maybe next time we'll choose better. After he left, I stayed on the terrace, breathing in the night air. My phone buzzed with a text from Levi. We're in the lobby when you're ready. No rush. No rush. The words struck me as profound in their simplicity. For the first time in longer than I could remember, I wasn't racing to meet someone else's expectations or timeline. I wasn't molding myself to fit into someone else's story. I looked up at the stars, bright and distant and indifferent, to the human drama unfolding beneath them. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, explanations to mutual friends, awkward encounters, the inevitable social media fallout. But tonight, standing alone on this terrace, I felt something I hadn't expected to find at Penny's wedding. I felt free.
Hello, my name's Avon. At my parents' housewarming party, they stood me in front of everyone and handed me a family contract termination. Yeah, like I'd been fired from being their daughter. They said it was time to move forward as a family, without me. But that wasn't the worst part. They'd already sold the house I helped renovate, transferred guardianship of my niece behind my back, erased me from legal documents. And then they rewrote the story online, called me unstable, said I wasn't even their real child. So I started writing my own story. Want to know how far they went to erase me and what I did about it? It was the kind of Saturday that made Eugene look like a postcard. Crisp sunlight cut across the trimmed lawns, kids zipped past on bikes, and my parents' new beige house gleamed like it had something to prove. Everyone was already gathered out back, beer coolers on the deck, folding chairs half sinking into the grass, a Bluetooth speaker fighting with the sound of laughter. I stood near the grill, flipping hot dogs with one hand and holding a roll of trash bags in the other. I hadn't planned to stay long. I told myself I'd show up, smile just enough, and leave before the usual dynamic swallowed me whole. Then my mother clinked a glass with her fork. The crowd shifted. Someone turned down the music. She stood beside my father, who nodded like they were about to deliver something life-changing. I felt a sliver of tension rise in my chest. Not because I expected anything good, but because I knew the kind of silence that came before a blow. She unfolded a piece of paper. Clean white. Printer perfect. "Thank you all for coming to our housewarming," she began. "Before we toast, we want to share something important with you." I stepped forward slightly, trying to catch her eye. She didn't look at me. "This," she held up the paper, "is a formal notice, a realignment of roles, so to speak. From this day forward, Avon is no longer considered part of the family's support structure. She's released from expectations, obligations, and any assumed involvement in our affairs." There was a beat of silence, the kind that feels like all the oxygen has been drained from the world. I didn't blink, didn't breathe. I heard someone's fork clatter onto a plate. It wasn't the words. It was the tone, like I was being offboarded from a job I didn't know I still held. Selin coughed into her drink. Rion turned to talk to someone about baseball. My father took a long sip from his beer and didn't even flinch, like this had been rehearsed. So I said, without raising my voice, "Was this printed at a Staples?" A few awkward chuckles escaped, but no one looked directly at me. I wasn't angry, not yet, just hollowed out. That piece of paper had more presence than I did. My mother smiled like she'd just nailed a presentation. "Let's eat." People scattered like roaches in sudden light. I stood there, the sun sharp against my neck, still holding the trash bags. I don't remember tossing them. I must have. Because the next thing I knew, I was standing off to the side, near the edge of the patio, watching them group up for the family photo. "Big picture time," someone called. I moved to join, and stopped when I heard Selin murmur, just loud enough, "Maybe sit this one out. You know, optics." "Optics," I repeated under my breath. I stepped back. The photographer framed them, smiles bright, arms looped around each other like it was a Christmas card moment. And me, I stood by the trash bin, holding a plate of untouched salad. Click. Just like that, I was out of the frame. Not metaphorically, not emotionally, physically, cut out as cleanly as a photo crop. They didn't need me there. They just needed me not to cause a scene. I didn't give them one. Instead, I watched the sunlight bounce off the new windows, the ones I'd helped install back in March before the move. I thought about the weekends I'd spent here, repairing drywall, hauling gravel, holding up their dream while mine collected dust. I thought about all the times they'd said thank you without ever saying, "You matter." And then I thought, maybe that paper wasn't the insult I thought it was. Maybe it was freedom disguised as rejection. As the camera clicked without me, I finally realized this wasn't just a bad moment. It was the last straw. I didn't stay long after the photo. I slipped out the side gate while they were still posing with forced smiles and wine glasses, the clatter of polite laughter echoing behind me. The walk to my car felt longer than it should have. Maybe because I wasn't walking away from a party. I was walking away from a position I'd held my whole life without knowing it had a title. Or a termination date. Back at my apartment, I tossed my keys into the bowl by the door and kicked off my shoes. The place smelled like clean linen and leftover Thai food. It was quiet. The kind of quiet you only notice when your whole body's still vibrating from someone else's noise. I didn't cry. Instead, I poured myself a glass of water, sat on the edge of the couch, and just stared at my phone like it owed me an explanation. No missed calls, no apologies. Not even a text from Celine to smooth things over, which she usually did with her fake sweet tone and emoji band-aids. I set the glass down, opened my laptop, and figured I'd check my schedule for next week. Maybe pick up an extra shift. Something grounding. That's when I saw it. A forwarded email marked FWD:family roles open parenthesis housewarming planning close parenthesis. Sender, Celine. Accidentally forwarded from her work account. I clicked. At the top. From Thalia Harwood. To Celine, Ryan, Dad. Subject, housewarming planning notes. It started innocent enough. Menu suggestions, table setup, parking coordination. Then, near the bottom, a single paragraph caught me in the chest, like a punch I never saw coming. Avon won't be involved in the photos or speech. She's not part of the structure anymore. She'll understand. She's used to being on the outside. I reread that line 5 times. Not part of the structure anymore. It sounded like I was scaffolding they no longer needed now that the building was done. I leaned back, chest tight, fingers frozen over the trackpad. The worst part wasn't that they'd excluded me. It was that it wasn't spontaneous. It wasn't heat of the moment. It was planned, written, shared, like a team coordinating how to fire a long-term employee without a lawsuit. I stared at the ceiling for a while, trying to decide if this was worth confronting. Then I picked up my phone and texted Celine. Me. Did you mean to forward that? No response. 15 minutes passed. Then a voice memo. I pressed play. Her voice was soft, almost sing-song. Casual. Avon, look, it's not like we hate you. You're just not needed anymore. You don't have kids, no husband, no house. This is how it works now. I sat very still. She said it like she was explaining why a grocery store discontinued a brand. Not needed anymore. As if love was a job description I had failed to fill. I didn't respond. I didn't throw my phone across the room either. I just placed it face down and walked to the window, where the last of the evening light had faded into a flat gray. They'd always treated me like the extra piece, useful when needed, stored away when not. I thought back to the time I stayed up with Leora during her senior project when Celine had a migraine. Or the weeks I lived with Mom and Dad after Dad's back surgery, missing work to make sure someone was there during recovery. Every time I said yes, I thought it meant I belonged. But maybe all it ever meant was that I was convenient. I made myself sit with that thought. Let it sting. Let it brand. I wasn't just cut out. I'd been edited out long before the ink was dry. The next morning, sunlight slipped through the blinds like it had no idea what happened the night before. I hadn't really slept, just drifted in and out, letting my mind chew on every word Celine said, every line of that email. Not needed anymore. I got out of bed without checking my phone. No one would have texted. I wasn't on their radar unless I had something they wanted. It was strange, though, how quickly you go from family to footnote. After a quick shower, I made a cup of coffee and sat at the kitchen table, staring at the same chipped mug I used when I first moved in. The silence wasn't comforting today. It echoed. I don't know what pushed me exactly, but halfway through my coffee, I grabbed my jacket and keys. I told myself it was just to get my work license. I'd left a few old documents in the filing box at the house they'd all moved out of, the house I grew up in. It hadn't sold yet. Dad mentioned that during one of his monologues about market timing, so it would still be there. Empty, but not forgotten. Driving over felt like walking barefoot across glass you laid down yourself. The house sat quiet when I pulled into the driveway. Same dull tan paint, same creaky mailbox, but no life in the windows. No Leora dancing down the hallway. No mom yelling about fingerprints on the fridge. Just stillness. I used the spare key. They hadn't changed the locks, and stepped inside. It smelled like dust and faded memories. I headed straight for the closet in what used to be my room, tugged the plastic file box from under a stack of folded tarps. I flipped through folders until I found the one labeled Legal Personal. Inside were old tax forms, copies of job contracts, and something that didn't belong, a manila envelope, no label. I opened it. Inside was a guardianship document, dated 6 months ago. I blinked. At the top, guardianship transfer, Leora Harwood. And below it, primary guardian, Ryan Harwood. My chest went cold. I scanned the page again, hoping I read it wrong. I hadn't. Not only had I been removed, but I wasn't even listed as a secondary contact. Just gone. Leora was 19, still legally under care for another few months due to the terms Grandma set up after her illness. And I'd promised, sworn, I'd protect her when things got rough. She'd lived with me for a full semester, while Mom was dealing with one of her exhaustion phases. I took her to therapy. I fought for her at school. I filled out every line of every form so she could apply for grants and housing. And now I didn't exist. I sank onto the floor, the file trembling in my hands. I thought I was done being shocked. Turns out I still had room. A sharp memory hit me. Dad talking about some little account Grandma had left for Leora. Something to help when she turned 21. A trust, he said. Nothing big, just enough for school or rent. I stood up too fast, heart pounding. My laptop was still in the car. Back in the driver's seat, I pulled up the document archive I'd set up during Leora's FAFSA hell. I searched for the fund name, found it, still active. Then I saw the listed manager, Ryan Harwood. I leaned back, trying not to scream inside a car that wasn't mine, in front of a house that no longer welcomed me. I clicked deeper. The fund wasn't being held for Leora, it was being used. Withdrawals labeled as administrative fees and household expenses. Nothing matched tuition or essentials. And Leora? She had no clue. I wanted to call her, to warn her. But the weight of that file on my lap reminded me who they'd chosen to speak for her now. This wasn't an oversight. It was a plan. They didn't just sideline me for being inconvenient. They erased me because I stood in the way. I'd always asked too many questions. Always wanted to see the paperwork, double-check the math, protect the wrong people from the right ones. And now they'd secured the silence they needed. If they were willing to erase me from Leora's life, then what else had they stolen while I was too busy saving theirs? By the time I got back to my apartment, the sun had already tucked itself behind the hills. My headlights lit up the garage door like a spotlight I didn't ask for. I turned off the engine, hands still gripping the steering wheel. I hadn't spoken a word since I left the old house. I didn't have to. I'd heard enough for one day. Inside, I dropped my bag on the floor and sank into the couch without bothering to take off my shoes. The weight in my chest had moved. It wasn't sharp anymore, just heavy, like someone had laid a concrete slab over my ribs and expected me to carry on breathing normally. I didn't open my laptop. I didn't eat. I sat in the silence, the kind that only comes after something breaks. Then my phone rang. I stared at the screen. Dad. Of course. Of course he'd call tonight. I almost let it go to voicemail, but some part of me, maybe the sliver that still needed to confirm this wasn't just a fever dream, pressed accept. "Hey, kiddo," his voice came, light, like we were catching up after a ball game. "You busy next weekend?" I blinked. "I need someone to watch the kids while we head out of town. You know, nothing big, just a little getaway for your mom. Thought you might swing by." I sat there, phone pressed to my ear, stunned by how cleanly he dodged reality. Not a single mention of the paper, or the email, or the trust. Nothing about the fact that I wasn't even family anymore, according to his wife. "Are you serious right now?" I said quietly. He chuckled. "Well, yeah, you've always been good with the little ones. Figured this was no different." It was like talking to a fog bank. Words went in, but nothing solid ever came out. I didn't yell. I didn't lecture. I just waited for him to stop talking, then said, "I don't work here anymore." The silence on his end lasted just long enough to sting. Then came the forced exhale. "Don't be dramatic, Avon. You know how your mother is. Just do what you always do. Show up and hold it together." I ended the call. Just like that. A clean break. I set the phone on the table, face down, and stood up to pour a glass of water. My hands weren't shaking, but they felt foreign, like they'd just handled something too hot or too alive. Not 5 minutes passed before the screen lit up again. Selin. This time, it wasn't a call. It was a message. Long. Too long. I opened it. "If Mom ends up in the hospital again from all this stress, that's on you. You should have stayed quiet. You're being selfish. You always make things harder when you're not in control." I read it once. Then again. It wasn't guilt. It was punishment for stepping out of line. The thing about shame is that it's sneaky. It wears the clothes of love, speaks in familiar voices, and uses your own memories as ammunition. But this? This was no longer disguised. They didn't want me to be part of the family. They just wanted me to keep acting like I was, for their benefit. I didn't reply. I didn't even delete it. Instead, I walked to the window, looked out at the dark street, and let myself feel the edges of the anger that had started to harden into resolve. I had cooked every holiday meal, painted 3 rooms in that new house, held my mother's hand through 2 hospital visits, and stayed overnight once because she was too scared to sleep alone. I had shown up, again and again. And now they were rewriting the narrative to cast me as the villain, for finally stepping out of line. They wanted the free labor, the emotional sponge, the woman who never said no, but I was finally learning how to say it. By midweek, the tension in my chest had calcified into something solid, something cold. It wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It was about clarity. If I wanted any chance at peace, I needed to get rid of the last thing tying me to their mess. My tools were still at the old house. I had agreed weeks ago, before the contract, before the erasure, to help clear it out. "One last favor," Mom had called it. I thought it would be a group effort, sorting memories, saying goodbye. But as I pulled into the empty driveway that Wednesday afternoon, it was obvious I'd be doing this alone. The curtains were gone. So were most of the light fixtures. The air inside was musty, stale in the way that only a lived-in space can get after the people leave, but the tension lingers. I found the cleaning supplies stashed in the hall closet, took a deep breath, and got to work. Room by room, I packed old books into boxes, swept dust from the corners, and wiped fingerprints off walls I'd painted myself. The fridge buzzed louder than usual, like even it was confused about the silence. 2 hours in, sweat running down my back, my phone buzzed. A text from Mom. "We knew you'd want to do it your way. Thank you." I stared at the screen, then placed the phone face down on the counter. That wasn't gratitude. That was strategy. They'd planned to let me believe I was choosing this, to give me a chore wrapped in autonomy. But I wasn't blind anymore. They didn't come because they never intended to. I finished the kitchen, then headed to the garage to grab the last of my things. My old toolbox sat where I left it, covered in dust, wedged between a broken lamp and a paint-streaked tarp. As I lifted it, Something slid from behind. A thin manila folder, slightly bent. No label, just wedged tight beneath the edge of the workbench. I opened it without thinking. Inside was a real estate agreement, date stamped 2 weeks before they asked me to help clear the house. Signatures, Thalia and Marvin Harwood. I flipped to the last page. Final buyer's offer. Acceptance. My jaw tightened. They had already sold the house before I ever touched a mop, before I carried a single box, before I gave up a weekend thinking I was helping our family transition. I wasn't helping. I was being used. Again. The words blurred on the page, not from tears, but from fury. A deep, stinging fury that settled low in my stomach, like a stone dropped in water. I snapped a photo of the signed contract and saved it. Then another, close up, in focus. Proof. Proof they hadn't just excluded me. They'd orchestrated my usefulness down to the minute. I set the file down, stood in the center of the garage, and looked around one last time. Every nail I'd hammered, every shelf I'd reinforced, every stain on the floor I'd tried to scrub out. Gone. Papered over. Sold out from under me. They had cashed in, and I was just the cleanup crew. I walked through the house slowly, flipping off light switches as I went. One by one, no goodbyes, no sentimentality, just facts. They'd planned every inch of this. When I reached the front door, I hesitated. Not out of longing, but out of finality. Then I stepped outside and locked it behind me. I walked out of that house with nothing, but this time it was on purpose. Back at my apartment, the quiet wasn't peaceful anymore. It was loaded. Every creak of the floorboards, every hum from the fridge felt sharper, like the walls were holding their breath with me. I dropped the toolbox beside the door and went straight for the kitchen table. I pulled out my laptop, set my phone beside it, and laid the photo of the house contract out on the screen like it was evidence in a case I hadn't known I was building until now. Because that's what it was, evidence. Not just of a sale, but of a decision, a conscious choice to leave me out. Again, I opened a blank folder on my desktop, labeled it, "They thought I wouldn't notice." I was done pretending this was all just misunderstanding or miscommunication. This was intentional, so I was going to be intentional too. I was midway through cataloging my documents when my phone rang. Not a number I recognized, but it was local. Hello? Hi, this is Jenna from Oregon Mutual. Just a quick follow-up regarding your emergency contact update? I paused. I'm sorry, what? Jenna hesitated. Your sister, Celine Harwood, submitted a change form last week. We were verifying that you no longer wished to be listed as an emergency contact for your parents. I blinked, mouth dry. I didn't submit anything. Another pause. Right, that's what I thought. Your name was on file for years, so I figured I'd double-check. Could you send me a copy of the form she submitted? Jenna lowered her voice. Technically, I'm not supposed to, but yeah, I'll email it. Minutes later, it arrived in my inbox. A PDF scan. I opened it slowly, even though I already knew what I'd find. Celine's handwriting, her email, her signature. She'd removed me, not just from holidays or text threads, but from the actual line of care. From the place where someone would call me if Mom collapsed again, or Dad landed in the ER. The form listed Celine and Ryan as the only authorized contacts. I wasn't even a backup. This wasn't exclusion anymore. This was erasure. I hit print. Then I took screenshots, one of the email, one of the PDF, one of my old policy information, with my name still on record. I added them to the folder. They thought I wouldn't notice. Then I opened a new message. Addressed it to Celine. Attached the PDF. No subject. In the message, you want me gone? Then, let's make it official. You erased me from the record. I'm just following your lead. Let's keep it clean from here on out. No greeting, no sign-off. I hit send, and for the first time in weeks, I breathed all the way in. That night, I got one more call. Dad. I almost didn't answer, but some part of me was still curious. Avon, he said, his voice a strange mix of casual and annoyed. "What's all this mess? Your sister's upset." I didn't say anything. We didn't hire outside help for the house because, well, you were there. You've always been there. We figured, why spend money when we have someone we can rely on? There it was. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling. "You mean someone who's accessible?" I asked, voice level. He hesitated. "I mean, Look, you don't have the same obligations. You've always been available." That word again. Not loved, not trusted, available, like an open storage unit, like a wrench. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't list the years I'd given them. I just said, "From now on, I come with terms, like everyone else you hire." And I hung up. Then I turned off the phone, slid it into a drawer, and closed my laptop. I didn't feel triumphant, not yet, but I felt clear. They wanted me gone on their terms. If they wanted a clean break, I was finally ready to give them one, with my name signed at the bottom, this time. By Friday, the air had changed. Not just outside, though the wind had picked up and the trees outside my apartment were starting to rattle, but in me. I wasn't raw anymore. I was resolute. That morning, I brewed coffee and sat with my laptop, reviewing the folder I'd been building. Digital breadcrumbs of every decision they thought would go unnoticed. But as I sipped and scrolled, a message pinged through on Messenger. It was my cousin Shelby. "Hey, what's going on with your mom's Facebook? Why is she saying that stuff?" My pulse skipped. I hadn't even opened social media in days. I clicked the link she sent. It was a photo post. My mom standing in front of their new house, smiling with a glass of wine in hand, surrounded by Celine, Ryan, Kale, and Leora. Everyone looked perfectly arranged, like a catalog page of familial bliss. But it wasn't the photo that gutted me. It was the caption. "Surrounded by my true family. It's been a hard choice, but necessary. Some people just aren't blood, no matter what they claim." The comments underneath piled up like dirt on a grave. "So brave to cut out toxic energy." "Family isn't DNA, it's loyalty." "Proud of you, Thalia. Some people just bring drama." Then came the reply that made my stomach drop. "She's not even my real daughter. She's been estranged since she was a teenager. It's been years of emotional distance. This was long overdue." I couldn't breathe. Adopted? Estranged? Years of distance? I was there last month. I bought the paint for that hallway. I took her to urgent care when she twisted her ankle in February. I made soup from scratch when she was on bed rest. And now I was a stranger? I stared at the screen, jaw clenched, hands trembling. This wasn't just exclusion. It was character assassination. She was crafting a story where I never existed. Or worse, where I had always been an outsider. I wanted to scream, but all I could do was sit there in disbelief while the comments multiplied. I didn't reply. Not there, not yet. Instead, I opened a new browser tab and searched my own name. Nothing yet. But I knew how fast things could spread. It was a strategic play, make me look unhinged, disconnected, unreliable, so that if I ever spoke up, no one would listen. Later that afternoon, my Aunt Jolene texted me. "Hey, I got your mom's holiday card. Thought maybe you'd moved?" Attached was a photo of the card. The Harris family, Thalia, Marvin, Celine, Rion, Kale, and Leora. 6 names, 6 smiling faces. No avenue. Not even a "we miss you," not even a blank spot. I was erased like whiteout, like I'd never been there in the first place. I stared at the image, then saved it to my phone, added it to the folder. Another document. Another thread. At first, the pain was sharp, but the more I looked, the more something inside me steadied. They wanted control of the narrative. They were rewriting the history of my existence, but they didn't own the truth. I closed my laptop, stood from the table, and walked to the small desk near my window. I pulled out an old journal, the one I used to write in during my night shifts back in construction, when I'd jot down material costs and deadlines alongside half-formed poems and rants I'd never say out loud. I flipped to a blank page and started writing. Not a post, not a letter, but my version. Who I was, what I did, what I gave. The truth. It wasn't for them. It was for me, and for anyone who'd ever been told they didn't belong in a story they helped build. If they wanted me erased from their story, I was finally ready to publish my own. The following Saturday, the sun showed up late to Coos Bay, dragging its light across the streets like it, too, had been exhausted by the week. I'd been staying busy, maybe even a little too busy. The cafe down the street needed someone to pick up weekend shifts, and I hadn't hesitated. Coffee stains were easier to scrub out than emotional ones. At the cafe, I moved like muscle memory. Brew, serve, smile, repeat. Brinley, the owner, had a laugh that cracked through the quiet like fireworks. She didn't ask questions when I volunteered for the early shift. She just handed me the apron and winked. "This one's yours now," she said, patting the register. "No ghosts hiding behind that screen." I liked that. I liked her. On my break, I checked my phone out of habit. A new message blinked across the screen. From Leora. "Hawaii trips canceled." That was all she wrote. No emoji, no explanation. A minute later, another message followed. "Dad doesn't want to pay for help, and everyone's fighting about who watches the kids. He's freaking out. I think Seelan threatened to pull out entirely." I just stared at the screen, sipping my lukewarm coffee with the edge of a smile. There it was. Proof. They didn't miss me. They malfunctioned without me. Every chore, every schedule, every last-minute favor I'd pulled off without complaint. It had been invisible when I was doing it. But remove me, and the whole machine sputtered. I felt something strange rise up inside me. Not triumph, not revenge. Something more like bittersweet relief. The kind you feel when you see a broken fence that used to look perfect until you stopped being the one nailing it back together. That night, while folding laundry in my studio apartment, Leora sent me a third message. A photo. At first, I didn't recognize it. Then I did. The housewarming picture. The one I'd been told not to join. She was in the front row, awkward smile in place, hands folded in her lap. The rest of the family, posed, glossy, perfect. And me? I was in the far background, blurry and bent, carrying a trash bag toward the bin. Almost a ghost in motion, unfocused, half out of frame. But still there, still there. I saved the image. Then I printed it, black and white, and pinned it above my bed, right next to a new sticky note that simply read, "Proof. Not pain. Proof." Because erasure isn't just an act, it's a process. And I was no longer participating. Sunday morning, I showed up early to the community center for my photography class. Naran, the instructor, greeted me with a crooked smile and a Nikon hanging from his neck like a necklace. "Early bird," he said. "I brought questions," I replied. He raised an eyebrow, nodding toward the open window. "Best lights right now. You want to shoot or talk first?" "Both." I stayed late after class. Not because I needed the practice, but because it felt like the first place in a long time where no one asked me to shrink. Naren let me try his old canon. "Every photo tells two stories," he said. "One you meant to capture, and one you didn't realize you were revealing." I thought about that all night. Back at home, I opened my journal again. Wrote, "They blurred me out of the picture. But now, I'm framing my own." 2 months later, the gallery smelled like old wood and fresh paint. The kind of mix that made you feel like something was beginning. Not loud or explosive, just real. I arrived early with Brinley, who helped me carry in the last framed print. Naran was already inside, adjusting a row of spotlight track lights with a folded bandana tucked in his back pocket, like a painter who forgot what century he was in. "Still time to run," he said with a grin. "I walked in," I replied. "I'm not running out." The space wasn't huge, just a converted storefront between a tailor's shop and a used bookstore. But it had character. Brick walls, uneven floors, windows that caught the late afternoon sun just right. One corner had a white painted panel labeled "Local Voices," And beneath it, the centerpiece of my exhibit. A blurry photo from the housewarming, taken from behind the crowd. You could barely see my face, half turned, mid-step, in the background. I'd titled it, Out of Frame. Below the title, a caption. Sometimes being cut out is how we learn where the edge is. People filtered in. Not a big crowd, but not empty either. Cafe regulars. One of my old site managers. A woman I'd met at the co-op who ran a soup kitchen on Thursdays. Naran's sister. Brinley's roommate. Faces that didn't expect me to explain myself. And then, near the back, someone slipped in quietly. I almost missed her. Leora. She didn't make a scene, just found a seat in the back corner and gave me a small wave, the kind you give when you're not sure you're allowed to do more. I walked over. She stood. "Hey," she said, eyes misty but steady. "You made it," I replied. "They think I'm with Kale." She shrugged, pulling a hoodie tighter around her. "I parked 3 blocks away." I smiled, soft and exhausted. "You didn't have to come." "I did," she said. "And they were wrong about you, all of them. I know that now." I didn't cry. I'd cried enough for 2 lifetimes. Instead, I pointed toward the photo. "That's me," I told her, blurred, forgotten, but still there. She stared at it. "You're not blurry to me." We didn't say anything else. We didn't have to. Back in Eugene, I'd heard through my cousin Marcus that things had begun to unravel. The post Thalia made about me not being her real daughter had sparked more than outrage. It sparked investigation. Apparently, one of my uncles confronted her at a family barbecue. Someone else called out Seelan during a church committee meeting. Ryan's role in the trust fund came under quiet scrutiny, and while nothing was pursued legally, the silence that followed was damning. No lawsuits, no arrests. But consequences? Oh, they came. Whispers traveled faster than truth ever could. Reputation is a fragile thing when it's built on fiction. Seelan stopped posting altogether. Marvin got disinvited from poker nights. Thalia's invites were left unopened. They still had each other. But it wasn't the pedestal anymore. It was the echo chamber. That night, after the gallery closed, I sat alone in my apartment with a glass of water and an empty inbox. I wasn't waiting for apologies. I wasn't hoping for mended fences. I'd finally understood something I wished I'd known years earlier. Closure isn't something they give you. It's something you choose to give yourself. I opened the folder I'd kept through it all. Screenshots, copies, printouts, notes. It had become something more than a shield. It was a record, not of revenge, but of reality. I didn't need to post it anywhere. The truth didn't need volume to exist. Before bed, I opened my journal one last time. Final entry. They said I was no longer part of the family. Fine, I built one that included me. Sometimes the biggest betrayal doesn't come with yelling or slammed doors. It comes quietly, dressed as duty, disguised as love. For anyone watching who's ever been the helper, the reliable one, the one who held everything together while quietly falling apart, I see you, I was you, and here's what I learned. You don't owe anyone your silence to keep their peace. Love without respect is just control in a softer voice. And family? Family isn't just who raised you or who shares your name. It's who shows up, who sees you, who keeps you in the frame. You're allowed to draw your line. You're allowed to walk away. And when you do, it's not the end. It's the beginning of your story. So let me ask you, have you ever felt like you were erased from a story you helped build? Or maybe you were the one always saying yes until it broke you. Drop a 1 in the comments if this story hit home, or tell me where you're watching from. I'd love to know which corners of the world are filled with people learning to reclaim their worth. And hey, if this video didn't land with you, that's okay too. Tell me why. I'm here to listen, not just to be heard. If this story touched something in you, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next one. We've got more real stories, more raw honesty, and more reminders that you're not alone in whatever you're walking through. Because sometimes, healing starts with hearing someone else say, "Me too." Take care of yourself. I'll see you in the next one. Hi, I'm Leora, and this is not just a story about a bad job. It's about family and the price of being underestimated. When I left the finance world to fix broken tech on a farm in Spokane, my sister laughed. At dinner, she raised her glass and toasted to real success, then turned to me with a smirk and said I was still figuring it out. Everyone laughed. I didn't. My parents never defended me. They said it was a phase. My brother told people I was off the grid. I found out my sister got married. After the fact. And when I saw her post mocking my work publicly, that was the final straw. They said I was dirty, that I'd chosen a dead-end path. 5 years later, I invited them to dinner. And this time, I was the one holding the clicker. And the truth. But what did I show them? What made my sister's face go white in front of our entire family? And why did my father stop speaking halfway through my presentation? You'll see. But I'll say this. Success doesn't always come with applause. Sometimes it comes with silence. The clink of wine glasses echoed like distant bells, delicate and sharp. I stood just outside the archway to the dining room, pretending to be mesmerized by a painting of abstract flowers on the hallway wall. In truth, I was trying to time my re-entry, hoping, maybe foolishly, that the introductions were over. Kala had thrown this dinner for Mom's 60th birthday, hosted in her pristine Atlanta high-rise that looked like something out of an HGTV reveal. The theme, celebrating powerful women in media, was as performative as the hand-picked guest list. Influencers, editors, station producers, and me, the sister who'd left all that behind for farm dirt and tech wires in the middle of nowhere. When I finally stepped into the dining room, no one looked up. A soft jazz playlist floated under polite conversation and polished silverware. I slid into the only empty seat, conveniently wedged between an empty chair and the wall. Kala raised her glass. "To our mother," she began, her voice commanding the room like a seasoned anchor. "To a woman whose grace has been our guiding light, and to all the accomplished women here tonight who've made their mark in the media world." Applause followed. Smiles. I lifted my glass halfway, until her eyes landed on me. "And to my sister, Leora," she added, pausing just long enough for the smirk to form, "who chose a unique path, from city lights to cow fields, from newsrooms to fixing cameras on cattle farms. She's still finding her way, right?" Laughter rippled like someone had tossed a pebble into calm water. A few raised brows. I caught one woman mouthing, "Oh wow," to her partner. I felt a flush creeping up my neck, hot and electric. My fork slipped slightly against the plate. I didn't raise my glass. I didn't look at Kala. I didn't even breathe too hard. Just sat there, perfectly still, and counted the seconds until dessert. They didn't see it, but that moment lit a match in me. I excused myself a few minutes later, murmuring something about needing the restroom. My heels clicked softly down the hallway, and I ducked into the powder room. It smelled like lavender and expensive silence. I stared at myself in the mirror. Not a tear, not a crack in the face, but my expression had changed. I knew it had. There was something sharper in the corners of my mouth, something tired of swallowing every dig, every pitying look, every story told without me. The truth was, they never saw the long nights, the frost-bitten fingers working on outdoor sensor rigs, the low-signal Wi-Fi meetings with tech advisors, the slow but steady progress of turning an idea into infrastructure. All they saw was the grease under my nails and assumed it was failure. And still, I held it in. Because what was the point? They had already written my ending. When I stepped back out into the hallway, I paused, again. From around the corner, I heard my mother's voice. Gentle, low, too casual. "It's just a phase," she told my father. "She'll come around eventually. If not, at least Kala gives us something to be proud of." I didn't move. Not a flinch. My hands rested by my sides, fingers twitching against the fabric of my dress. I turned and walked toward the balcony instead of the dining room. Outside, the city skyline shimmered like someone had lined the horizon in diamonds. I stood there, arms folded, remembering the silence in our childhood home whenever I talked about technology, about changing the way agriculture worked, about building something that didn't have a polished logo or network slot yet, but would change everything. They never believed it. I was dirty. My sister made fun of my bad job. 5 years later, my net worth ranking silenced her. But not yet. Not tonight. I walked back into the dining room with my shoulders square and my mouth set in a quiet line. No one noticed. They were already deep into dessert. Miniature lemon tarts and espresso shots in dainty cups. The laughter had shifted tones, smoother now, like nothing awkward had ever happened. Kala was retelling a story about a panel she'd hosted for CNN the previous month. Gideon leaned back in his chair, beaming like she'd just accepted a Nobel. Maris dabbed the corner of her mouth with a linen napkin and didn't so much as glance in my direction. I waited for someone, anyone, to acknowledge me. Nothing. I slid into my seat without a sound. The tart was still cold. I chewed it slowly, the citrus bite harsher than I remembered. Around me, silverware clinked. Conversations ebbed and flowed like I wasn't even there. Like I hadn't just been made a punchline 20 minutes ago. I could feel the heat crawling back into my face. But this time, it didn't burn. It calcified. After a few more minutes of enduring the performance, I leaned toward Kala and said quietly, "I've got an early flight tomorrow. I'll head out." She smiled. Too bright, too rehearsed. "Of course. Safe travels." No hug, no guilt. I walked out without looking back. It was after 10 p.m. when I reached the rental. A little craftsman tucked under oaks on a quiet street. The kind of place someone books for peace, not for parties. I slipped off my heels by the door, the silence inside pressing against my skin like humidity. I tossed my clutch on the side table, kicked off the urge to cry, and walked straight to the kitchen. 1 glass of water, 2 sips. Then I sat on the floor, back against the lower cabinets. I replayed everything. Not one word. Not even Theron, who'd always called me the weird genius of the family, with a kind smile and genuine interest in my work. He'd laughed with them too. Maybe not loudly, but silence is its own kind of volume. I opened the group chat on my phone. Sullivan's United. The name felt like a bad joke now. No message from anyone. Just a photo Kala had posted. Power dinner with powerful women, captioned with a sparkle emoji. I stared at it until the screen dimmed. That was the moment it sank in, fully, finally. This wasn't accidental neglect. It was quiet, collective agreement. I'd been written out of the story. My phone buzzed. Aunt Rhea. I hesitated. She hadn't been at dinner, hadn't texted in months. I answered anyway. "Hey, sweetie," she said, voice soft, like she'd been waiting all day to say something, but didn't know how. "I heard Kala's dinner was tonight?" It was. A pause. "I didn't go. Honestly, I figured it'd just be more Kala." I let out the breath I didn't know I was holding. She continued cautiously. "Your mom told me not to worry about you. Said you were still playing with those tech toys, that you'd find your way back eventually." My fingers clenched around the phone. "I see," I said flatly. "Honey, I didn't say I believed her." "I know." We hung up a few minutes later. She tried to end on a warm note, but it didn't land. I stood up and walked to the small desk by the window. My laptop blinked to life. On the desktop were 4 folders: Farmlands Beta, Investor Report, Q3, Pitch Deck, Series B, and 1 folder in bold red font, Receipts. I clicked it open, screenshots, voicemails, emails I'd archived over the years, not out of pettiness, but pattern recognition. There was always a pattern, and I had stopped making excuses for it. Out the window, I could see a sliver of moon above the trees. Cold and distant. Familiar. That night didn't break me, but it did something better. It drew the line, and I never let them cross it again. The folder marked Receipts was still open on my screen when I stood up to refill my glass. I didn't need to reread any of it. I knew every screenshot by heart. I just wanted to feel the weight of them again, the truth I had carried alone. As I leaned against the counter, sipping water, my mind drifted, uninvited, 5 years back. Boston. I was 29, working at a mid-tier finance firm on Boylston Street, trying to make sense of spreadsheets and pitch decks that felt like someone else's skin. The numbers never lied, but they sure didn't thrill me either. Every Sunday night, I'd call home, part habit, part duty. That particular night, I was standing by the window of my studio, watching rain smear down the glass, when I said it. Dad, I think I'm going to move out west. Spokane. There's a space opening up in an old grain building. I want to convert it into a test lab for this agri-tech concept I've been working on. Silence. Then a short laugh. Not the amused kind. The dismissive kind. Oh, so now you think you're Steve Jobs in overalls? He said, the sarcasm sharp. It's not about being anyone, I replied. It's about doing something that matters. You have a stable job, a path, and now you want to chase dirt and gadgets in the middle of nowhere? I'm not chasing anything. I'm building something. You always were good at pretending. That was the beginning of the cut. A week later, I flew down to see them in person. I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd see it differently, face to face. We sat at the dinner table. Mom had made her famous garlic roast. Gideon folded his napkin once, then again. If you walk out that door, he said, don't come crawling back for help. No checks, no rescue plan, no temporary loans. I didn't answer right away. I looked to Maris. Her hand found mine under the table, for a second. Then she pulled it away and busied herself with pouring more wine. That silence hurt more than his words. I left 2 days later, with 2 suitcases, a used MacBook, and a heart so heavy it felt like lead. Nobody came to the airport. Nobody called the next day. Spokane greeted me with gray skies and a warehouse that smelled like rust and hope. The walls were chipped, the wiring a disaster, but it was mine. I slept on a cot in the corner the first week, surrounded by extension cords and invoices I couldn't pay yet. There were nights I doubted everything, but never the choice to leave. 3 months in, after a long day rewiring motion sensors, I needed to print a permit form. I plugged in the used HP printer I'd hauled from Boston. To my surprise, it auto-synced to my old cloud inbox. That's when I saw it. An email from Gideon to Theron, dated 2 weeks after I moved. Subject: about Leora Body. She's gone full delusional. Don't let her sweet talk you into investing. Let her learn it the hard way. I stared at the screen, hands frozen. I wasn't surprised, not really. But reading it, seeing it so plainly written, was a cut of another kind. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just opened the Sullivan's United group chat and left it. Then I blocked every number with our family name attached. That night, I slept better than I had in months. Now, back in Spokane, the morning sun angled through the window of my office. I blinked out of the memory as Noor stepped in, tablet in hand. Investor docs ready. Want a last pass before I send it out? I nodded, pushing aside the old pain like dust on glass. It didn't hurt the way it used to. It just hardened the corners. They thought cutting me off would break me, I said. Noor didn't respond, just waited. All it did was sharpen me. I couldn't sleep. The doc was done. Noor had sent it out to our top 3 investors, and my to-do list for the day was technically clear. But at 1:04 a.m., I was still sitting at my desk, scrolling aimlessly, sipping cold chamomile tea that tasted more like regret than comfort. My Slack pinged. Noor! Me. Check general. I clicked over, not expecting anything urgent. And there it was, a screenshot. Just one. Kala's name, a chat bubble. Some people are still playing with farm toys and calling it AI. Adorable. Then beneath it, the word, deleted. I didn't respond. Just saved the image to my desktop with today's date in the file name. I didn't even change my expression. Noor must have sensed the silence. Noor, me. Want me to say something? I typed slowly. Me. Noor. Not yet. The message had already sunk deep. It wasn't the words. Those were almost too predictable. It was the timing. After everything, she still thought this was a game, a toy. My chest tightened, but not from sadness. It was that colder thing, the one that made my fingers move faster, more precisely. I closed Slack and opened a private browser tab, searched for old tech media forums where Kala's ex-colleagues used to hang out. It didn't take long. A thread buried under layers of off-topic posts. Inside the bubble, life with broadcast royalty. Kala's name was mentioned more than once. And mine too. But never with kindness. One comment stood out. She had this secret chat group, Real Careers Only. Used to forward her sister's startup pitches just to laugh at them. She called it Tech Barbie's Diaries. Wild times. I stared at the screen, letting it bleed into me. It wasn't just mockery, it was sport. I wasn't just ignored. I was entertainment. For the second time that night, I didn't cry. Instead, I opened a Google Doc titled Family Incident Log. I began with the earliest wound I could remember. May 14th, age 9. Kala accidentally deletes my science fair files. And then I kept going. Each entry was short, precise. Each date, a moment I could trace. Each one felt like loading a bullet into a magazine I didn't know I'd been building. I knew this wasn't about revenge, not exactly. But I also knew silence hadn't done me any favors. I whispered to the quiet room, "You really think I haven't been watching too?" My voice barely echoed. I minimized the log and opened a new browser tab. Gmail. 2. Family group email. Subject, Family Weekend. Travel arrangements provided, Edie. Hi all, I'd love to invite you to a family gathering. Location, Santa Barbara, California. Dates. Redacted. Transportation and accommodations will be fully arranged. There's something I'd like to show you. See you soon, Leora. No flourish. No guilt. Just a time, a place, and an open door they could walk through. If they dared. I hit send. Then sat back and stared out the window. The sky was a deep velvet, stars fading behind a stretch of high clouds. They used to think I was the one hiding behind screens. This time, I'd be the one controlling what they saw. It was a Sunday morning, spring light slipping through my kitchen blinds. I had just brewed a second cup of coffee and was flipping through updates on my phone, mostly out of habit. And then I saw her. Kala, in white. Veil trailing behind her like a cloud, bouquet clasped against a picture-perfect smile. Her new husband, whose name I couldn't even recall, was frozen mid-laugh beside her. The caption, "What a perfect day for our family." I blinked twice. Scrolled back. No prior post, no announcement, no engagement celebration I remembered, and certainly no invitation. I tapped into the family group chat. Nothing, no countdown, no mention of flights or dresses or toasts. Just that photo. My fingers gripped the edge of the countertop. For a second, I couldn't tell if it was shock or just static. I called my mother. She answered on the second ring, her voice too cheery. "Leora, I was just about to—" "Did Kala get married?" A pause. 1 second. 2. Then, "Oh, yes. Yesterday, actually. It was beautiful. I didn't know there was even a wedding planned." "Well," she started, her voice softening into that maternal apology she'd weaponized for years. "We didn't think you'd be comfortable. It was very media-centric. A lot of cameras. Kala said she didn't want you to feel out of place." "Out of place," I repeated. The words tasted metallic. "You know how these things go, honey. Sometimes it's better to just keep things simple." I hung up without saying goodbye. Later that night, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror, brushing my teeth. I stared at my reflection, toothbrush paused midair. There was no card, no call, no RSVP to decline. They didn't forget me. They erased me. Weeks passed. Then, on a Thursday afternoon, Theron texted, "In Spokane for work. Coffee? I agreed. Not out of warmth, but curiosity. He met me at a quiet spot downtown. No pleasantries. Just 2 paper cups and weather talk before he leaned in. I didn't agree with it, he said. With what? The wedding. Not inviting you. I said it wasn't right. I nodded, unsure whether to thank him or keep my guard up. Then he pulled out his phone, hesitated, and tapped something. She doesn't belong in my world, Kala's voice said through the speaker. She's not presentable. The words hit like a punch. I sat still, jaw tight. Theron turned off the audio. I saved it. I don't know why, but I thought you had a right to hear it. I swallowed once, then said, Thank you for not deleting that. He didn't respond. We parted ways without hugging. That night, I updated the family incident log. March 22nd. Wedding. Excluded. Voice memo. Not presentable. Then I opened a new message window and typed a text to Kayla. Just so you know, I heard what you said. One day, you'll wish you had invited me. I hit send. No reply came. And honestly, I didn't expect one. Warnings aren't for the ones who listen. They're for the ones who think they're safe. The buzz of Noor's footsteps rushing down the hallway was always a signal. Something had happened. But this time, when she pushed the glass door open to my office without knocking, her face said more than urgency. It said war. You need to see this, she said, tablet in hand. She tagged us. I took it, not asking who she was. I already knew. There it was. Kala Sullivan, verified. There's a fine line between tech innovation and tech cosplay. Some folks are out here pretending with their farm cameras. Hashtags. Yakju reality check. Respect the grind. Media realism. And beneath that, our platform tagged. Our investors tagged. A punch to the throat in public format. I scrolled through the comments. Laugh reacts, applause emojis, a few corporate peers chiming in with thinly veiled shade of their own. It was going semi-viral in our space. Fast. Noor stood in front of my desk, arms crossed. We can't let this slide. But I didn't flinch. I leaned back in my chair, thumb still resting against the screen, rereading the post one last time before locking the tablet. We're not going to respond publicly, I said. We're not sparring. We're setting a trap. She looked confused. I opened my laptop and forwarded the post. No caption, no commentary, to a senior contact I knew in Kala's corporate HR department. Her firm had strict public image guidelines, especially for directors who held public trust accounts. Let them handle it, I said. Noor raised a brow. That's cold. I didn't argue. I didn't smile either. The next week passed quietly. I didn't bring up the post again. Didn't check if she took it down. Didn't need to. Until Wednesday morning. An industry friend from LA called me out of the blue. Hey, did you hear? Your sister got pulled into a PR freeze meeting. Internal audit, reputational exposure clause or something. She looked rattled. I thanked her for the heads up, closed the call, and went back to work like nothing had happened. But inside, a switch flipped. They always thought I'd never hit back, that I'd stay quiet, passive, defeated. But the difference now was, I wasn't fighting for acceptance. I was preparing for reckoning. Later that evening, I stepped into the private conference room in the back of my office. Noor was already inside, multiple screens casting light across the table like a command center. Documents lined the wall, spreadsheets, quotes, transcripts, photo captures, timestamps, email headers. Every insult, every exclusion, every manipulation mapped like evidence in a courtroom. Noor didn't need to ask. She tapped the final screen. Everything's lined up, time to the second. We pull one trigger. There's no version of this where they recover clean. I nodded once. My voice was calm, almost eerily so. Good. Then I looked at the display again. Because I'm done whispering. The first jet left Newark at 9 a.m. A second took off from Chicago. By noon, a third rolled onto the tarmac in Houston. They didn't know where they were going, only that the invitations had come in sleek black folders, sealed with gold foil and sent by courier. No explanation, just 2 lines. Travel included, dress for dinner. A small part of me wondered if any of them hesitated, but curiosity was a powerful drug, especially in my family, where mystery usually meant money. I watched the flight tracker from my tablet. Every dot on the screen moved like a piece on a chessboard. Gideon, Maris, Olivia, even Calla. They were all in the air. For once, I controlled the altitude. "They used to fly without me," I said to Noor, who sat quietly across the aisle. "This time, I own the wings." She smirked, but said nothing. We landed in Santa Barbara first. The villa I'd rented stretched across 5 acres of coastal cliff, terracotta rooftops glowing beneath the late afternoon sun. By the time the last Rolls-Royce pulled through the gate, the staff was already in place. Each family member was handed a personalized welcome folder with their name embossed in silver. Calla glanced around the open foyer with suspicion. "Is this a brand pitch or a family meeting?" Olivia whispered back. "Maybe both." Knowing her, there'll be a slideshow. Inside their folders, 8 p.m., dinner 9 p.m., presentation by Leora Sullivan. I didn't have to be in the room to feel the eye rolls. Still upstairs, I stood behind the curtain in my suite, watching their arrival from above. Their reactions were almost too easy to read. Maurice took photos. Gideon barked something about the wine being too French. Calla smiled politely, but tugged her phone out with nervous fingers. Noor entered behind me. "They're here. You ready?" I turned. "Almost." We stepped out into the hall. As we walked, I caught snippets of conversation drifting up the grand staircase. "This is absurd," Gideon muttered. "Probably another startup sob story. She wants money again." My mother didn't reply. She rarely did when he played that card. Noor looked at me sideways. "Still want to go through with this?" I didn't hesitate. Now more than ever. By 7:30, the villa buzzed with dinner prep. Caterers moved like dancers. Plates were aligned with architectural precision. Wine glasses caught candlelight in soft flashes. I didn't join them for appetizers. I needed a moment. Alone in my room, I stood barefoot at the edge of the balcony, ocean stretching out like an endless blue dare. The air smelled like citrus and salt. Familiar, calming. But my mind wasn't here. It was in Spokane, 5 winters ago. I could still feel the sting of frozen fingertips trying to solder a busted chip heater. The bitterness of instant coffee at midnight, the ache in my back from sleeping on folded towels. Those nights had built me. Noor knocked, then stepped in. "You sure about this?" "I'm not here for revenge," I said. She raised a brow. I smiled, just slightly. "I'm here for recognition. The truth deserves a microphone." She gave a half nod. "They're waiting." "Let them." I pulled my hair back into a low bun, checked the slides one last time, and straightened the lapels of my black suit jacket. This wasn't war. This was the moment before. The lights dimmed at exactly 9 p.m. No announcement, no music, no grand entrance. Just silence, and then a low mechanical hum as a screen lowered from the ceiling. Some shifted in their chairs. Olivia glanced sideways at her wine. Calla blinked rapidly, probably expecting a welcome toast or an awkward slideshow. Instead, Noor handed me a remote clicker. I stepped forward. The only sound was the hush of ocean wind brushing the villa windows. "This isn't a business pitch," I began, my voice even. "It's a truth report." First slide. A grainy photo of me in the Spokane warehouse, bundled in layers, soldering boards next to a rusted space heater. I didn't explain it. Click. The next slide. Our early metrics, user growth charts, pilot studies with local farmers, ROI projections for our machine vision platform. Then I paired them. Every chart came with a quote. Gideon's email, "She's delusional." Maris's voice memo, "She just needs a real job." Calla's deleted post, "Tech cosplay." Laughter didn't come. No one breathed. I kept going. A shot of our farmlands prototype at its first field test. Beside it, a text from Olivia in the family group chat. Maybe if Leora ever got out of the barn, she'd know how real tech works. I didn't glance their way, just spoke. I documented everything, not to embarrass you, but to show you what you missed. Click. A live map of global distribution partners, logos of Fortune 500 companies, articles quoting me on the future of agritech. Click. A headline. Leora Sullivan's vision raises $30 million Series B from West Coast Syndicate. Then I paused. Some of you laughed. Some of you rolled your eyes. Some of you cut me out of weddings and family photos. Click. Final slide. Kala's viral LinkedIn post, side by side with a leaked internal memo from her employer. Reputational risk. Probation. Content flagged for corporate review. Gasps. Noor didn't flinch. I didn't either. I looked straight at Kala. Some of you mocked what I built. Now you work for companies trying to hire me. I closed the laptop. Silence. Not the awkward kind, but the kind that follows an explosion. Gideon sat back, arms folded but quiet. Maris stared at the flickering candle. Olivia was frozen. Kala? Her face had drained of color. Theron finally broke the stillness. Why didn't you tell us? I met his eyes. I did. You just talked louder. That landed like a slap. Even Olivia winced. No one moved. No one reached for dessert. In that moment, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt clear. I hadn't needed applause. I hadn't even needed apology. I just needed them to know. What they ignored wasn't invisible. And what they dismissed didn't disappear. It grew. The morning light spilled into the dining hall, warm and golden, as if nothing had happened the night before. But everything had. By the time I came down for coffee, half the family had already left. No goodbyes, no notes. On the kitchen counter sat a copy of Forbes, neatly folded, front page facing up. The Billionaire in Boots, How Leora Sullivan Outsmarted an Industry and Her Doubters. There was a photo of me standing in front of a green AI-powered field rig. I hadn't posed for it. They must have pulled it from an investor event last quarter. My phone buzzed. A string of texts filled the screen, some from cousins I hadn't heard from in years. Holy crap, Leora! Why didn't you ever say anything? Proud of you. I didn't reply to any of them. The family group chat was strangely quiet. Then a ping. Kala. PR asks that no one comment on Leora's story publicly. Thank you, and that was it. No apology, just corporate cleanup. Typical. By 10:15, I'd packed my things. While I zipped the final bag shut, there was a knock on my door. Maris stood there, her cardigan slightly misaligned, hair less perfect than usual. She didn't step inside, just looked at me for a long second before speaking. You deserved better, she said softly. I'm sorry I didn't see it then. I could have said 1,000 things, but instead, I just nodded. Thank you, that matters. Her eyes shimmered for a moment. Then she turned and walked away. No hug, no big gesture. But it was something. Back in Spokane, the sky was pale and crisp. Noor had beaten me to the office. When I walked in, she grinned and pointed toward the glass wall. There, hung between our mission statement and a plaque from our first investor, was the framed Forbes cover. Beneath it, in a small wooden frame, sat an old photo I hadn't seen in years. Me, 24, crouched on a concrete floor in a winter coat, testing circuits by lamplight. I stepped closer, brushing a finger across the glass. That girl, she looked exhausted, but alive, driven. And maybe, just maybe, she'd be proud of the woman standing in front of her now. Later that night, I stayed late at the lab. The warehouse buzzed with low hums, machines calibrating, cooling fans whispering in the corners. I walked the aisles slowly, touching the edge of each new module we'd built. I passed the prototype room, the server stacks, and paused at the door marked Private Dev, LS. Inside, it was just me. Just the hum of my work, my ideas, my space. I sat down at the workbench, clicked on my monitor, and opened a fresh planning doc. Across the top, I typed, 2026 Vision. Expand to Africa. Soil Imaging X. Crop Prediction Beta. I leaned back. They could keep their silence. They could pretend the article hadn't hit. But the world saw it now. And more importantly, so did I. Success didn't fix what they broke, but it gave me room to rebuild what they never took the time to see. I was dirty. My sister made fun of my bad job. 5 years later, my net worth ranking silenced her. Maybe you've been there too. Maybe you've had to sit quietly while people who were supposed to love you laughed at you, dismissed you, labeled you. Maybe you've walked away from comfort, family, approval, tradition, just to build something that felt right, even when no one clapped for you. If that's you, I want you to hear me when I say, your worth doesn't expire just because they couldn't see it. Not everyone gets a front row seat to your becoming, and that's okay. You're not building for applause, you're building for impact. What they call crazy, dirty, or a waste of time today might just be tomorrow's revolution. Don't hand the pen to people who never bothered to read your story. Now I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever been underestimated or overlooked by your own family? What did that feel like, and how did you rise above it? Drop your story in the comments or simply type 1 if this hit home for you. And hey, tell me where you're watching from. I love knowing where this little corner of the internet reaches. If this story moved you, helped you reflect, or gave you strength to keep going, hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell icon so you don't miss the next story. There's more where this came from. Real voices, real lessons, and yes, real healing. Thanks for being here. You matter more than you know.